Ready, go.
This is a bunch of stuff. I threw this together today because I never have time to do this in Sunday school, and I'm probably not going to be able to do this during the summer lecture series. But these are just 8 little, not arbitrary, but 8 themes I came up with today where they all appear in the Bible, starting in the Old Testament. They all go away through the New Testament. Then they have something that happens over here in the book of Revelations when there's a second coming and we have the New Jerusalem. But between the last mention of these things in the New Testament and where, excluding Revelations, because Revelations is in the future, and when they pick up again or are rendered moot in the New Jerusalem at the end of Revelations, there's like this huge time gap. And I kind of wanted to cover that and deal with all these things comprehensively. Of course, in the first case, we know I'm trying to allocate like 1 minute to each topic. Is here hierarchy? Remember, we looked at this, which, as we know, is a mountain, and that mountain's by the very nature hierarchical. And that later, when Moses was in the desert and he went up here to visit with God in the cloud, that Moses was able to go to the top. And the elders were able to go halfway to the top, and all the people could not even get up on the mountain at all. There was a hierarchy. The same sense of hierarchy extends into how the meeting tent operated. You know, we had a meeting tent. Let's just draw it this way. There's the meeting tent. Generally, the Jewish people could come out here, the Levites could come in here, and only the high priest could come in here, because that's what God was, and there's where God is. This continues in the New Testament, same way with the Catholic Church. All the people can come into the main part. There's a separation. Only the priest and the other elders can be there. Jesus is the high priest. The offering is made up in heaven. In the case of sacrifice, let's see, there's no sacrifice you need because there's no sin. If you don't sin, you don't need to atone for anything. Remember that we had, let's see, Abraham. First one that says Abraham was the first person to have to make a sacrifice that I can remember. No, I think Moses made a sacrifice. I think maybe when Moses got out of the ark, he made a sacrifice. I can't remember now. Anyway, but there was Abraham, and then we went to the sacrifice of the lamb with Moses. There we go. Saying about Noah. Did Noah sacrifice?
Whoa.
What?
Moses got out of the ark?
I get Moses and Noah confused constantly.
There you go.
Yeah.
They were the same age.
Were they?
900.
Okay. So anyway, the guy that got out of the ark, I think he made an altar sacrifice when he got out of the ark. So he's sacrificing. Yeah, Noah was sacrificing. Moses sacrificed like a fiend, as we know. And then that whole Levitical process of sacrifice went on and on and on all through Jesus' day. And then okay. So anyway, then we have blood. Blood was always a big deal. I think the blood thing started with Moses when he would kill a bull, and they would start sprinkling the blood on everything. Had to sprinkle the blood on the lampposts. There were ritual cleansing where blood and water were mixed together. On and on and on and on. A bunch of that there. See, that arrow takes care of all of that. Liturgy, of course, is once people started messing up with what they were doing and they worshiped the golden calf, then Moses said, God told Moses, all right, these people can't be trusted anymore. You're going to have to set up a rigorous system for giving me the respect I'm due. And so that's where all the Levitical stuff came into play and all the particular ways things were done in the meeting tent. And of course, that was all in the Old Testament, which moved to the New Testament. And of course, we still have a very rigorous liturgy. Everything has to be done a certain way, thus and so. Continues all the way into the future. Spirit and stuff, this is cases where God's healing power or other kinds of power work through physical things. Offhand, I know that one of the first ones I can think of is Moses took his stick and hit a rock. Mm-hmm. Let's see what else. Elijah's cloak could be rolled up and hit the water to spread, to make the water part. What else? Elisha's bones brought a dead man back to life. St. Peter's shadow, was it St. Peter's shadow or St. Paul's? That if their shadow passed over sick people, it would heal them. And then if it was whichever one was St. Peter, now the St. Paul, remember that rags would be pressed against St. Peter or St. Paul, and I can't remember which, I confused them. And you could take that rag and go press it on the sick person and it would heal them. So all the way through the Bible, there's all these times when God's physical creation is used as a medium. In fact, even Jesus himself is regarded sacramentally that Jesus physically mediated God in a unique way to everybody. Down here, as soon as everybody moved out into the desert, the Israelites, one of the first things God said is, you have to build me a very nice temple because I love you so much, I want to dwell with you. And that dwelling, God wanted to dwell with him in the meeting tent, he dwelled with him in the temple, and of course, he's going to be dwelling with us again in the New Jerusalem. Marriage is a constant theme that runs all the way through the Bible. In fact, in the very opening bit of Genesis, one of the most important things is that Adam and Eve were husband and wife, and that was like a critical, the highest point of God's creation was that men and women come together and they get married and they make more babies. Or they make babies and then they make some more. Let's see, what else? Miracle food. Of course, there's tons and tons of miracle food in the Bible. Let's see, I think the first one was when they were out in the desert in the manna. And then, of course, the quail. And then Elijah had some miracle food brought to him. And Elisha multiplied some loaves. And Jesus did the wedding at Cana. Jesus did the loaves and fishes. So tons and tons of miracle food. Now, you get over here at the New Jerusalem, and actually there is hierarchy in New Jerusalem. There's a vision of the heavenly worship in chapter 5. That's the same kind of deal as that, you know, God the Father is up on his throne, and then the Lamb is down here, and then below him are all these elders, which we know are priests. There's still hierarchy up there. In fact, the sacrifice is continuing because the Lamb continues to be slain until the very end when Jesus comes back. Of course, there's still blood. Interesting, in the book of Revelations, it says, "Who are these people?" And the angel tells John, he says, "Those are the martyrs. They've had their garments washed in the blood of the Lamb, and that's why their garments are white now." And that's where the phrase comes, "washed in the blood of the Lamb." So the blood is still there. Liturgy, there's that liturgy still going on, just like what that was, which is, of course, the liturgy when we go to Mass. The liturgy is the same as what's in heaven. Spirit and stuff. Jesus is hanging out with us physically in the New Jerusalem. What could be more fabulously sacramental than that? God dwells, it's the same thing. At the end of it says, God will dwell with his people. He loves them so much, he will pitch his tent with them. So there it comes up to closure here. Marriage, remember, God, come to the great wedding feast of the Lamb, and Jesus is going to marry his bride, the church, and it's so romantic. So marriage is a major player in the New Jerusalem. And the last thing is the miracle food. And, well, there's not really any fabulous miracle food in the New Jerusalem, but it's rendered moot because you're hanging out with Jesus 24/7. Now, here's the interesting thing, is this is the gap. This gap, every one of these things this gap is filled by something the Catholic Church does. In other words, in this case, the hierarchy, we still maintain the hierarchy all the way through. We have a pope, a bishop, we have popes, bishops, priests, deacons, and lay people, and they pretty well organize themselves. This is the way religious hierarchy has been organized ever since going back to the Sinai Desert. Sacrifice, we still present that sacrifice. Blood, Jesus' blood is still being transformed out of wine every Sunday or every day all around the world. We maintain that. Liturgy, obviously a continuity. Spirit and stuff, we have 7 sacraments. Every one of them in one way or another is maintaining that physical manifestation of God coursing his healing or spiritual power through physical things. God dwells with us in the tabernacle, literally. Marriage, of course, the Catholic Church regards marriage as sacramental. And the last one, miracle food, of course. At the Mass, what we have is miracle food. We eat Jesus' body and blood, and we drink. We eat his body. We eat his body, and we drink his blood. So, actually, this entire thing is like this gigantic task that the Catholic Church is doing to maintain the continuity of God's action in salvation history between the point where things kind of came to a halt at the end of the New Testament, or at the end of Acts of the Apostles, let's say, historically, and the point where God will again physically come down and participate. Now, the point here is kind of the stopping point, is Jesus goes up to heaven, and then it's up to the Catholic Church to maintain things until Jesus comes back down to earth again, and we're reunited with him forever, for all eternity. So see, this is just a big, gigantic, big picture plug for the Catholic Church, and what a great privilege it is to be participating in something that's so indispensable and important. So I'm done. You can turn it off now.
Hear, hear.
Amen.